Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan Musnev. With me, the Split, Kirklin Patzer. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing very good. I'm excited to talk some games and some up and comers with you.
Yeah, we have a fun episode here. Talk about some of the games we've been playing. For me, that's mostly been Civilization 7, which just released last week. There's also a pretty juicy state of play, like 45 minutes worth of some new announcements, some kind of reminders, new trailers, other random PlayStation information. And then I don't even know what Kirkland's got cooking over here, so I'm excited to find out. But should be a good episode. If you want to support the show, you can hit a Patreon. It's the best place to go. You get episodes early and ad-free. You can also join our Discord to chat with us about all sorts of stuff. I don't know. There's all sorts of things going on in the feeds. We're doing all sorts of our award stuff, like the Golden Geeks. We just did the MCU Golden Geeks, or the Marvel one rather, and then we're going to do the full-on Golden Geeks this week. It's TV show city right now. We did a review for Captain America, and I don't know, any other things to mention in this world, Kirkland?
No, I think you got the heavy hitters. We got Daredevil coming up, so Taylor and I are getting ready to release our last retro there. So that's it's been a fun journey, but yeah.
Still not recorded, hey? That's still
no, it's still
just in your
still
head.
Progress, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's start with Civilization 7 because I've been playing just a ungodly amount.
Healthy amount.
Yeah. Let's go all the way back to the antiquity era here. So just a little kind of quick backstory, I guess, for me with Civilization, Sid Meier's Civilization. I kind of have two main touch points with this series. Of course, it's the seventh one, and there's even been spin-offs outside of the numbered ones. And I've played maybe like half the games in the series. For me, the first one that I played back in the day was Civilization 3. And this is one of those classic games, Kirkland, that like back in, I don't even know how old I was, but it was like summer, middle school vibe, I want to say, maybe even late elementary school. My cousin, who I'd play a lot of games with, he over the summer would spend like all of July with us. He lives in Vancouver. We lived in Kelowna, but he would come stay with us for all of July.
Nice.
And it's just an insane amount of video games we played. We watched like Waterboy every single night. So yeah, literally watched it like 30 times back to back, pretty much. And then we like always had a shift game on the one PC in the house. You know, sometimes we play like GameCube and other things, but we always had the shift game. So it'd be like Roller Coaster Tycoon, maybe Sims,
nice.
Or Civilization 3 was another big one there where we would, play for a few hours. Maybe we were working on it, brainstorming stuff, but it'd be like, okay, he played for a few hours. I'd boot up a different save, play for a few hours. And it's funny thinking back, it's like, I don't know how strategic or good we were. I feel like all we probably did was combat and just destroy other civs and not pay attention to culture and science and all these other different pillars that make up a civilization game, because of course there's a lot to it. But it's a game that I'm very nostalgic for. I did revisit Civ 3 maybe 5 or 6 years ago and played a bit of it, and it was fun just kind of going back since playing newer ones and being like, oh my god, this is very confusing. I thought I would pick this up and know how it all works, but all these games have such little details and the quirks of how they all work that they all feel very distinct to play. And if it's been a while since you haven't played one, I feel like there's always that recoup period of like, okay, how does this stuff work? How do like settlers work in this game? How does like production and food and all these just little things, they're always a little bit different. So Civ 3, by the way, did you have one of those that you would play with like a cousin or something like that? Just like a weird shift game, like a PC, or you're kind of splitting the PC time?
That's hilarious that you bring that up, because I had the very same dynamic with my one cousin where he lived in Alberta, but every summer, like, he would just come and stay with us, and yeah, we'd be playing a lot of games together. He was actually the one that gave me like my first PlayStation, because he got a PS2 and then I got his hand-me-down PS1. So we were playing a lot of console games together, like mostly PlayStation. But the big like shift rotation game that we played was like GTA San Andreas. We wouldn't do the storylines or anything. It would just be like you'd go on a rampage, like once you die, like try and get a 5-star.
Yeah, I did that GTA 4 with all my friends.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a pretty easy shift game there, but. No, we played a lot of games together, and there probably is some that I'm forgetting, but we were pretty lucky where we had like a bunch of PCs in like my basement, so we just do like LAN parties for like Age of Mythologies and stuff like that. So we didn't really have to swap out too much, but yeah, no, it was good times.
yeah, the very fond memories of those games that like you're just so passionate about that you're like anxiously waiting for your turn, so different than like a Smash or Mario Kart where everyone's just playing at the same time. So yeah, that was Civ 3, and then the next one I played was Civ 5. I don't know how old I was. Maybe this was like high school era, maybe even a bit later in my adulthood or something like that. And it's funny, I kind of feel like with Civ 5, I have a similar thing as I do with Melee, where Melee is a game I grew up, played a lot as a kid, loved it. And then I rediscovered it as an adult in the competitive scene. And I kind of feel like there's two minds when it comes to like how Melee exists in my mind. There's that nostalgic kid brain, and then like the in depth, I know all the frame data, I knew all this information. And I feel like that's kind of what I had with Civ 5 when I first played it. It was just like, oh, this is Civ 3, but it just looks way better. Cool, this is fun. Like, I don't understand everything, but I'm just having a good time. And then at some point a few years down the line, I remember I got like really into watching a bunch of YouTubes about Civ 5 and just like really learning in depth how all these mechanic works and like getting to the point of like min-maxing. And I never really played online, but just like keep turning up that CPU difficulty until I don't know if I ever really beat the highest difficulty, but the second to highest. And there's like 7 or 8 tiers or something like that. But just really getting super in-depth knowledge of those mechanics. So it's just, yeah, it's become one of my favorite games of all time because that's one I keep revisiting every couple of years. It's one of those games that I'll come back and do a save, and then I have to like mentally stop myself because I know it's like the only thing I'll play, and I play on the quick difficulty or quick speed, so it's like it doesn't take too long, but it still takes hours for like one game to complete, right? And then after that, I did, since I was so hyped on Civ 5, I did play Civ 6 probably around when it came out, probably within the first year. And weirdly, it was a game I bounced off pretty quickly. I think I was just so in depth with Civ 5, and there's so many changes, and they changed some specific things that I really liked about Civ 5 in terms of micromanaging certain resources or like the worker min-maxing, that sort of stuff. And so because of some of these changes, I think I kind of turned away from it pretty quickly and probably didn't really give it much of a fair shake. And I've definitely gone back and booted up a few more games over the years, but it's just never clicked with me. I also didn't really love the art style as much. It's a little more like Pixar cartoony. Everyone's like weird proportions, like they don't look like real people, and I feel like I'm really sure, even though this is a fictional retelling of society, it's nothing close to our actual human history. I like that element of realism, that touch point, and so I think something about the art style kind of turned me off too. And then other than that, played a little bit of Civilization Revolution. I talked about playing the DS version of that last year on Sidequest, but also played the console version back in the day a little bit. And then was it called After Earth, like the one like in
Beyond
space
Earth.
planet Beyond Earth? That's the one. And yeah, I almost immediately tipped on that game. I probably bought it at full price, and I was like, no, I'm not into this at all. So then I just kind of keep going back to Civ 5. So that's kind of my brief history with the series, and I think something about that dynamic. Okay, Civ 5 is a game I love. I know it so well. Civ 6 comes out, it changes a lot of things that I really like about the game. Of course, it adds other new, cool, interesting things, but I kind of just bounced off it because it wasn't familiar. And I feel like by the time Civ 7 has rolled around here, I guess I was maybe more open to trying, and I knew going in, I'm like, this is not Civ 5, Dylan, this is not Civ 5, this is not going to be the same, I'm not going to get the same, it's not going to activate the same synapse in the brain, it's going to be a little bit different. So I think I came at it from a bit more of a fair shot, and I almost want to go back and play some more Civ 6 now and give that a bit more of a fair shot and understand some of its mechanics more. But yeah, so far, I mean, early impressions, because this is, Civ 5 is a game I have hundreds of hours in, so it's hard to compare with, I don't know, maybe I have 20 already, though, like in this first week. Like, I've played a lot. So far, so good. I'm really enjoying it. I think the change of mechanics are really interesting. Of course, it does change some things I do love about Civ 5, but I think it for me, it's justified some of those changes a bit more, whereas Civ 6, I was just like, I don't like this at all. Why would they make this change? I think where I want to start, though, is by critiquing the game heavily for being unfinished. This is an early access game. It's not sold or pitched or whatever as an early access game, but it definitely is. There are so many things in this game that are just totally busted, and it's like there's no way anyone tested this. Like this UI, I think in particular, has a lot of issues. For example, in my kingdom now, I have like almost 20 cities, which is a lot. That is a lot, but like you're having to micromanage resources in this game. Like, okay, I'm going to take the dyes off this town and I'm going to move them onto this town. And to do that in this, you have to like click the button down 20 times, but there's like maybe a half-second delay every time you click down to the next town. So if I want to put something on like the bottom town in my kingdom, as far as I can tell, there's no other way to do this other than just slowly clicking down and so it gets to a point where I don't even do it. I'm just like, I'm not even going to min-max this. I'm just going to allow it. And so there's all sorts of things like that across the game where the UI is just kind of a mess. It's crashed on PS5 for me close to 10 times at this point. It auto saves every turn, so I haven't lost any progress, but it's just super duper annoying. One of the lamest and weirdest things ever, you can't like queue things in the tech tree. So normally when you're picking your
Oh,
next techs. You know, you're like, oh, I'm going for industrialization. I'm just going to click on it, and it's going to go through all the paths to get there. I don't have to think about it. You can't do that in this game, which makes no sense because you can queue buildings for towns. So like the feature is there. Allocating resources, as I mentioned, a total mess. The buttons are also really stupid. Like I'm playing on console, as I mentioned, not, and this has always been a PC game for me. So that's taken some getting used to. I have gotten pretty comfortable with it, but still, if I want to like go halfway across the world and click on something there, I have to like hold left on the stick and slowly move the cursor all the way over there. It is ridiculous. And the most ridiculous part about that is the PS5 controller has like a mouse touchpad-y thing.
mm-hmm.
But you know what that button does when you move around your hand around on it? Absolutely nothing. And you know what it does when you click it in, like the button feature? It brings up like your 2K account linking thing. Which
Oh my god, that's so
in game it
brutal.
does that. Not even just on the menu. It's like insane. That, and I think part of the reason why they do that is because like, okay, of course this game is coming on PlayStation, but also Xbox, also Switch, which don't have those functionalities. But it feels like, oh man, you're really not taking advantage of like the hardware here. And I also think, you know, maybe the worst of all offenders is like this game is just really awful at teaching absolutely anything about the game, and the glossary in game doesn't work. Like you'll search up certain things, it'll give you an entry that's not related to what you're looking for. You know, I think for me, I need like, if I'm a Civ 5 player, what are the things I need to know? And it just doesn't have anything like that in the game. Even like for Civ 6, it just doesn't teach in any sort of efficient way. So my first game I played, and I don't know how, I think it was maybe like 60 or 70 turns. I did not super deep for a Civ game before I ended up getting 2v1 by a CPU, getting killed and having to restart. So I was fine, but I was like, I don't know, I'm it's not quite clicking yet. I'm not understanding. So after that, I went and binged some YouTube videos, like the classic, like 7 things I wish I knew about Civilization 7. I watched like a handful of those videos, which taught me all sorts of things I need to know. Of course, these videos know that people who watching this are most likely people who played the previous Civ games and want to know like the differences. And so they did a really good job of laying out some of those differences. And so I went into my next game feeling like I understood things much better. And then very soon after that, it's hooks in me with the classic one more turn mentality thing of like, oh, I'm just gonna do this one thing, oh, but then maybe I'll just wait until I get this other city captured over here. Oh, maybe I'll just wait until I plat my new one, and then I can't put it down. So now I'm like totally addicted to it. So I really only played that first game where I got bombarded. The second one that I'm still working on, I'm probably like 15, 20 hours on this one game. I think I'm almost near the end of it. And then I did one more. I had a friend over on the weekend who's a big Civ 6 fan. And so we played like a little brainstorming single player session where we just played through, for probably a couple hours, which was really fun as well to kind of play through it with him and talk through some of the different mechanics and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely need to critique the game for all these like issues that are like, yeah, I don't want to play early access games. I know I could have waited, but this is a game. I want to pick it up. I'm excited for it. I want to check it out. I want to talk about it on the podcast when it's relevant. And yeah, it's like this game is it's just not finished. And this has kind of happened more specifically with Civ 6 as a game that released and then like it was fine. And then when it had its DLCs, it was great, And I think that's kind of what they're going for here. Oh, the last thing I wanted to complain about too, monetization out the ass. There's already like $50, $60 worth of DLC in this game on day one. And there's like, if you link your 2K account, you get like bonus civs and all this annoying stuff. It's like, this game's $90. Like, let me just buy the game and get the content on day one. So super duper egregious with the monetization stuff. Of course, I can still play the game. It's still a finished game, but there's obviously a lot of things that they stripped out to just sell you already on day one. And then also, DLC packs to come, I'm sure, for years. Because that's kind of how they make these games is they make like half the game now and then they plan to finish in 3 years. It'll be finished and good to go.
It's the same thing with Total War. Like Warhammer, I went through that when Warhammer 3 came out. It was definitely not a finished game. Like it even in the sense of like there's certain tools and like quality of life things that they have in the second game and then they just aren't in the third game, and it just doesn't make sense why they wouldn't have them in there. Like it's like they're going backwards, and then guess what? A couple months later they add them in, and it's just like, man, like I love these games. Like I invest so many hours in, and I definitely get my money's worth out of them. But like same thing, the DLCs are egregious, and the price of the DLCs are like higher now than they've ever been. Like they released one DLC, it was like a $30 DLC, and it came with like 2 different races, which is like insane. In Warhammer 2, they had one. It was a whole new faction with like 5 different leaders that you could play, and it was $15 like DLC like out of the gate. So it's definitely
Yeah.
just ramping up in like the egregious forms. Paradox, is that the game studio that do those 4X ones? Do you know, like Stellaris and Europa Universalis?
Oh, that sounds right.
It's kind of the same thing as well there, where like if you subscribe to their whatever monthly thing, like you get access to all the DLC, which is kind of a nice thing to have because they do have like 400 plus DLCs. But still, it's like just the collectathon of collecting these DLCs and people that have them in the past. It's just yeah, it's a frustration when you have these, especially like the big IPs. I knew about the Civ 6 release and how it wasn't the hottest, but yeah, I went through it with Warhammer, and it's just like when they have a game that like the base game engine is already established, but they're just like releasing like the next in the series. It feels like they never have good releases for some reason.
Yeah.
They're just never complete, and it's frustrating. Even though we love these games, it's still frustrating and worthy of a mention.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff where like even in the first few days they've had quite a few patches to fix and improve like UI and other things like that. It's like, did you not know about these issues until the game was released and people told you about this feedback? Like, don't you get thousands of people to test this game before it comes out? So I don't know. It's obviously when you release a game, you're going to have a lot more eyes on it than any amount of playtesting ever could. And so of course there's naturally going to be things that people are going to pick up that others haven't, but some of these things do feel especially egregious. And I think one of the problems here too is like I was excited with that same friend who came over. We were originally talking about doing, he was going to pick up the game too, and we were going to do some cross-platform play, which is a thing supported in this game, but they had to kick it out of cross-platform play because they can upgrade the PC version of the game quicker. So it's getting more it's multiple patches ahead now, I guess, of the PlayStation version. But because of that, the cross-play is wonky and doesn't work. So they've just like disabled that for the time being. So that's incredibly stupid. Like I absolutely hate that. That's not good. So anyway, there's there's all the things that you should need to know. My suggestion would be don't buy this game yet, even though I love it and I'm really enjoying it. Wait, it'll be cheaper eventually and it'll be more finished. And then you can maybe even add on some DLC packs if you want to pay a little bit extra. But I don't see any reason, with the level of greed here to pick up the game right now, even though it's really good. Like just go play Civ 5. That would be my suggestion for, I don't know, $20 with all the DLCs. I don't know what you can get it for now. And come back to this game at a later date. That would be my general suggestion. But, do whatever you want. I bought the game. I'm having a good time. So that's all I can say with that. I think, right off the bat, visuals, as I mentioned, such a big part of these games for me. With other games, I think it's kind of can come or go. It's like if I'm there for the gameplay, I don't really care what it looks like. And Civ, I'm there for the strategy primarily. But for me, it really is fun to nerd out about these different civilizations and the historical aspect of it, and looking at all these the world wonders or these different certain military units that different civilizations had through history. Like I think the visuals to me is such an important part. And as I mentioned, that was maybe one of the reasons why I bounced a bit off of 6. And this feels like it is going back to a bit more of a Civ 5 art style, a little more simplistic, which is honestly kind of what I want. Really lush, like beautiful colors, like the water looks great. And man, just like as your cities are expanding and more of the buildings are kind of cruising out across the lands and you're filling it in with farms, it's a game that like every once in a while I'll just stop, I'll zoom in, and I'll just like slowly pan around my kingdom, and I'm like looking at the farms and you can see little chickens playing around, or like go to the sawmill and you can see like an excavator like pulling dirt out of the ground and moving it around, and it's like birds flying around, all these like beautiful little details. It's like a cute little diorama thing, but then it's like a big, complicated 4X strategy game, So, but I like that there's kind of that level to it. So, absolutely gorgeous game. I love the visuals of it. Music is, completely fine. I haven't really listened to it much because there's just not much going on, and it's not really a game you need audio for otherwise. So yeah, let me talk you through. So as I mentioned, that first game, I kind of got bombarded 2v1 by CPUs, got absolutely wrecked. So, that didn't go great for me. But then my other one has now been quite a lengthy game. So one of the big changes here with the mechanics in this game compared to every other Civ game. Also, I guess a quick forewarning for anyone who's like a big Civ 6 diehard fan. I might think some things are new to this game that were actually in Civ 6 that I just never encountered because I didn't get as into that game. So just a fair warning. But here's something that I know is definitely new. Is at the start of the game, rather than picking, I'm going to play as Egypt and you get I don't know, whoever Cleopatra or something, instead of like that, instead in this game, you pick your leader and then you also pick your starting civ separately. So I picked Benjamin Franklin for this playthrough, who has a certain list of abilities and perks that he has. But then I was playing as Rome, and so Rome also comes in with
multiverse.
The way it's kind of, both of them have like their own perks. Of course, Rome also comes with like, oh, you get like the Roman Legion as like a specific military unit. You get like the Roman, I don't know, Colosseum or some specific improvement. So you get like specific buildings and units by picking your civ and maybe other stat resource bonuses, but then your leader has like certain different bonuses on top of that. So I think one that's going to add potentially some good replayability of like mixing and matching different combos in terms of how you want to play style it out. So that was how I started my game. And yeah, I think, early on it was the classic thing. I was kind of spreading out, scoping out my opponents, trying to find people, putting out different territories. I got to a good point where like I kind of insulated my capital with like a city down south, city up north, and city out west, and then I was kind of on the coast, and then just kind of backfilling like additional cities that were not going to be as close proximity to other civs, so they weren't as much of an issue there. Kind of just filling out my land. All is going well there. And then eventually in this game, the eras are kind of split out into 3 sections. So you start in the Antiquity era, and that's kind of what the gameplay is like. You're spreading out, you're kind of defining borders, building out your cities. Maybe you get some early wars in there. And then eventually, once you get far enough in the game, you'll go into the Exploration era, and everyone goes there at the exact same time. So rather than like, oh, this guy's way ahead in tech, he's kind of way generations ahead of me, it kind of balances out because everyone moves into the same generation at the same time. And at that point, it kind of turns into like more about exploring the whole world. That's kind of when you're going to be getting the ability to traverse oceans with your boats at that point in time. So then it kind of turns into like, okay, I'm going to go find undiscovered lands, other islands and things like that. And I was so far ahead of these other players, it was insane. There was like this huge chain of islands kind of going all from south to north on the map. One of my opponents grabbed one of them, and then I grabbed like every other island, and then they even like backfilled a couple more to the point where I almost have complete border control of like almost the entire south to northern peak of the entire map. So I almost have like it just blocked off so people cannot progress at all across there. And that's something I really love about this is like in Civ 5, it always felt like a huge investment to put a new city out there because I mean, one, if it was in like some weird random island that doesn't have a lot of territory, it just takes a long time to get it built up to a point where it's like functioning and doing stuff on its own. And then whenever you build out a city, it like creates like kingdom-wide unhappiness, makes other things harder to build. It takes like get upgrades, these kind of things. And so you almost like in Civ 5, most of the time, I'm just going for like 4 really big cities. And that's it. And then like maybe a couple later on, or there's different play styles and that sort of thing. But I feel like this game is really encouraging you to build more and more cities to the point like now I literally have like 19, which is insane. I don't think I've ever had that many in a Civ game. And it's because when you are settling in this game, you actually start by you put a settlement down, and it starts as a town. And so it's like a smaller city. You can't actually control what it's building. You can, if you have money, you can buy certain buildings like a granary, like an ironworks, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it's just going to grow. It's going to grow the territory out, and you can buy things for it. Of course, your borders are there, so you're claiming your own land, but you kind of have a little bit less control over it. And then production, which is normally the resource that goes into building buildings, instead just turns into gold for those towns. So now it's just building up money, so you can use that money to then buy buildings out. So it's just like a little bit different, but you can kind of just foster a town over time. And there might be certain towns where even it's been around for a long time, and I might never even just upgrade it. I might just leave it as a town forever because it's just not really going to be a big production house. I'd rather just like make money from it and like claim the border and use it as a place where my units can go and heal up and that sort of thing. And that's also why it makes it so much easier to like expand onto islands and things like that, because it doesn't matter if you have a ton of land to build on and get a huge production stack so you can start building all sorts of stuff. It's like fine if you're just chilling there. It's not gonna you do get like unhappiness debuffs and things like that if you build too much, but I like way past that unhappiness debuff, and I still have an insane amount of like positive happiness built at this point. So I don't know exactly how all the math works on it yet, in the same way I could explain like, oh, in Civ 5 when you put it down you get 4 unhappiness right away, and then you get 1 happiness added on for each population. Like I don't know all the numbers of how it works, but it just feels like a lot more free form, and that's such a fun part about Civ, is just like putting cities down. It's simple, but it's really fun. And then once you get enough gold, you can just buy that town into a city. And so obviously the towns are producing extra gold on their own, so they're kind of feeding themselves into getting to that point. But then also you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to upgrade at different times. And as I said, you can leave them in a certain state. So it's like, yeah, I'm just going to leave that as a small town, and maybe it'll even grow. Maybe it'll become a big town, but it never needs to upgrade to a city. I don't need to worry about that. I can just leave it. And that's also one less thing for you to do as a player, one less thing to micromanage, because you can just let it chill there and hang out. And I think that's a really great change. I think it's really fun. It's really engaging. One of the things that's kind of weird, though, is when you go from those different eras, so from an antiquity era, now everyone's an exploration era, your capital stays as a city, but then like everything else gets demoted again back to town, and then you have to like build up again what you want to turn into cities. So I guess that's just like the scale of it, right? It's like, okay, now that was considered kind of a city, but now it's small by the standards that we measure here. So I don't know how I feel about that yet. We'll see how that goes. But so far, it's like, okay, once I'm in antiquity era anyway, I'm making so much money that it's like pretty easy for me to quickly promote all of these again back up to city status. So yeah, that's a really interesting change that I think is really, really cool. And that was a really fun era for me, is exploring all those islands. And I got to a point where to get a certain bonus objective thing, I had to claim a certain amount of towns, and that's why I was building so many. But then I can also get bonuses by taking out other towns. And so I was like, I don't want to build any more towns. So let me go take out this city state. They're weak, they're undefended, they're on their own. I can take them out pretty easily. I did that, but unfortunately he was allied by like another civ. So then that civ declared war on me instantly. I'm like, I was not prepared for war, but like fisticuffs, let's go. And so me and this guy duked it out. He had another town on like near those island chains I was in, and I was like, oh, this is actually perfect, because this is going to be that last town I need to connect my huge island chain. So I took out his city there. Yeah, and then his capital was nearby, and it was like on the coast, and I had a ton of boats. So I took out his capital, claimed it for my own, and then at that point I was like, yeah, you want peace now? Let's go. Let's declare peace. I'm done. I'm done with you. I don't want to do anymore. And so yeah, it was kind of like an impromptu war that happened because of his connection with the city state, which was kind of a cool thing. And then pretty soon after that is when we progressed into the modern era. And so the modern era is kind of now you're going for your win condition. Now you're trying to clinch out that victory. So there's different ones, of course. There's like war victory, which would be like killing all other players. But there's also another one now, which is just like, I don't know, you not necessarily killing everyone, but just doing enough military, I guess, to have enough of a presence. You can get a win without a straight out kill, which I think is an interesting change. The science one's the same as always. It's the space race, build the spaceship parts, be the first one to land on the moon, then you get the science victory. There's an economic victory, which I don't really understand yet. And then there's a cultural victory, which I also don't really understand fully yet. But I think the game does a really good job of, throughout the eras, there's the win condition, right, when you're in the modern era, but the other eras have they're not win conditions, but they're goals for you to go towards, and then you'll get bonuses going into the next age. And so it's good because it kind of incentivizes you to be thinking about these different elements of the game. Make sure you have a good economy, you're not falling behind in science, you have good culture, you're keeping up with your army and all that stuff. So it's giving you incentives along the way and different goals for each of the different eras. So it kind of gives you a little bit more direction. You're even getting like quests on top of that to like build certain things or do certain exploration goals. So I feel like the game is giving you a lot more direction. I do wonder if that's going to make the game feel samey on repeat playthroughs, because now like the early game of Civ, normally it's like, well, your win rate now, like all you're trying to do is like build a spaceship, and that just takes thousands of years, so it's going to take a while. But now you have like incremental goals, and so we'll see if those make the game feel a bit too samey. You can also just start in modern era or exploration era if you want a shorter game or just want to explore those mechanics more. You can like skip right to those and start a game from those points. So that's interesting. And then, as I mentioned at the start, how I picked Ben Franklin and was Rome. With each era, you actually progress into a new civ. You always keep Ben Franklin. So I don't know how this guy's been alive for thousands of years. But now I went from Rome in exploration era. I changed into Spain. And then from there, I went into France with the modern era. So it's kind of like the idea how there's like, I don't know, the Mayans or the Aztecs and stuff, which is kind of like modern day Mexico and like South America and stuff like that. So it's kind of that idea of like civilizations kind of changing or evolving over time or being kind of brought into other ones. And that's kind of like almost like a skill tree, I guess, in the way you go about it. And certain ones you just get by default. So like Ben Franklin, you'll always have access to America in the modern era. But then other ones, it's like, oh, you have to complete certain goals. You have to build like 5 towns on rivers, and then you'll unlock this Civ that's known for having, a lot of control of rivers and things like that, right? So really interesting. We'll have to wait and see. I think that's the thing a lot of people didn't really like about this game, because like they want to live that fantasy of like civilization, and like I want people to be locked to the civilization that they're from and stuff like that. But I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think it'll just, if anything, add more variety to games. And now there's, rather than just, that would happen too. Like maybe you'd pick Egypt or something in Civ 5, and maybe they have like a really early game military unit that's good, and that's awesome for the early game. But then by like modern era, that unit, has been outclassed 100 times over. And so now, like, okay, your unique unit's like not really a thing anymore, but now in every era, you're going to have unique buildings and unique units to keep you going, and give you a little more variety. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm into the idea, and with this game, I think it's been a fun journey, and I think it makes it a little bit more memorable too. Like that specific journey of going from Rome, going up to Spain, and then eventually over to France there, just based on what I'm trying to do, what my goals are for each of these ages. So I think it's a really cool idea. It's something that's working for me at this point in time, and I'm still trying to get used to how much things reset when those new eras pop. As I mentioned, getting your cities demoted and other things change too, and some of your units get like moved around, and I don't know, it almost feels like it's starting a fresh game, even though obviously it's the same map. So a little confusing on how all some of that works. But overall, I think it's a really interesting, cool change, and I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, it sounds so foreign of an idea to like be able to have a different ruler with like a different civilization, because that's just such a Civ thing, like if you're playing as Gandhi, like you're getting India, like the pairings. So I like the, I guess, just variability that you can get, because then you can get a faction with specific bonuses paired up with a civilization that has specific pros and cons. At least that's how I remember it being in Civ. I famously have only really played Beyond Earth, the lesser of all the Civ games, but for whatever reason that one latched its hooks onto me. But no, it's really interesting just hearing, I guess, the evolutions of the game and what they're switching up. And of course, with anything like that, there's going to be people that love it and hate it, and I get that with Warhammer. With Warhammer 3, they introduced some really great things and changed some things that I was really not fond of, to the point that I was like, they're gonna change this back. Like I was just in disbelief. I'm like, there's no way that they're keeping this, and then they ended up keeping it, and then look at that. Now I like that change more so than the old one. I kind of just was a stubborn guy, and it took me a while to accept the new mechanic. But I mean, that's just what you have to get when you are evolving on the game and trying to make it new and unique. And like, how do you feel about the fact that you all kind of evolve at the same time, I guess, because that's always famously been like a big race, if you can get ahead of the game, like your major advantage over your counterparts.
I mean, I think it's almost like a Mario Kart mechanic, right? Where like in Mario Kart, they'll no matter how far ahead you'll get, like they'll rubber band the CPUs to give them additional speed to make them catch up with you. And I feel like that's kind of what it's doing, but there is still that thing of like, let's say I'm going, like in this game, for example, some of the other stats people have been close to me on, but like science, I am way ahead. I am so far ahead in the science thing. And so it'll get to a point where, like, I don't know, even though we all progressed to the modern era together, because I had discovered all of those techs earlier than my opponents, I was able to build the ironworks at that time earlier. So now going into the next era, even though they have that tech now, even though they didn't research it on their own, but they got it for free because we all progressed to the next era, I still already have the leg up, because all these things I discovered, I've been able to implement for like 50 additional turns or something like that, right? So I think, I guess the other part of it too is like, and I'm still trying to figure out this mechanic, but the way when it kicks into the next age is kind of based on how the overall players are doing. So like, let's say there's 100 points, 100 age points that need to be hit for everyone to progress to that next age, but that's going to be a cumulative number. So maybe I can only get, I don't know, 30 or 50 of those age points by getting really far in the tech tree, getting really far in civics and culture. And then like, it'll take other players also getting far in maybe the economic tree or the military tree for us to overall, as like a world, get those points enough pushed up to get to that next point. So I'm sure you could definitely have runaway wins, and I kind of feel like that's what this is here. I'm not playing on the highest difficulty, so I think it's just a bit easier than it normally would be, I guess, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so far ahead. But I don't think it's a bad thing, I guess, to give these people a chance at least to catch up. Although there are even certain things like, I was laughing. There was these two civs that were next to me. They kept trying to both ally with me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll ally with you." But then they were going at war against each other, and they're like, "Do you want to come help me in this war?" And I'm like, "No, not really." So I'm gonna unally with you. We'll re-ally again later. I don't really want to be part of this war. I'm gonna let you guys go about it. And one of them had like open borders with me, so I could see all his units are running through my territory to go fight the enemy, which did freak me out a bit because I'm like, I don't like all these people on my cities, but like I think we're good because we have 20 trade deals right now. So if you went against me, that would be a huge detriment to you and not a big detriment to me. But he had like, sword fighters and stuff. I'm out here with like guns and whatnot. So it's like I was like way ahead of this guy. But now that we're all kicked into the modern era, all his stuff gets promoted for free, I'm pretty sure, to the next date. Like there's maybe some degree of separation there. I'm not exactly sure how it all works. But in general, I think it's fine. I'm curious how people will feel about it in like a multiplayer game setting, like the people who play competitive. But that's not me. I'm only ever going to play this game against computers, or we're like with a personal friend where maybe there's 2 or 3 of us at most and we're doing a game where we're probably not even going to finish it. We're probably just going to play for one night and then never touch that save again. So yeah, I'm totally fine with it so far. I think it's interesting and different. But yeah, I think it's just going to take a few more games of seeing how that all goes. But yeah, I think it has been, it's because there's those multiple objectives, like you are kind of incentivized to have really good stats of everything and not just be the science guy, because if you want to progress that age sooner and get further in the science tech tree, you're going to need points from all those other things too. You're going to have some military presence, some of that economic power in order to push that age forward, even into the modern era, before you can even take advantage of that science lead that you have. So I think there is, probably some pros and cons to it, but overall I think it's a pretty interesting system. The other thing too, I guess with the towns, as I mentioned, you plop a town down, eventually you can upgrade it to a city. I really like that. And then I think what they've done with city states is interesting too, where that's always been like, it's kind of like a one city civ that's kind of spread around the map, and you can kind of be friends with them and they'll ally with you in war or give you certain resources and stuff like that. Those change a lot through the eras. So like I noticed when we progressed to the exploration era, all the ones that we existed in that first era just like disappeared off the map, and then like new ones got planted down in different places. So those friendships I built were now like removed from the game, but then there was new ones I could go get. So kind of weird, feels kind of strange. But then also if I had befriended that city state and then I spent points to turn it into one of my cities and incorporate them into my civ, well, now obviously I still keep that city. So that's something that feels a little bit weird, but we'll see how that goes. I think they also, one thing they've done is like, and this could be a Civ 6 thing once again, but really simplifying just the growth of each city. So now like whenever you hit that food cap, you get a new population, you can spread your borders out and grab a new tile, and then you'll get the rewards from that tile. Like let's say it gives you 3 food or production or something like that. Like if there's a mine to be built there, it'll automatically build that mine when you expand. So it kind of takes that mechanic normally of like your borders are expanding naturally, but you can also pay to expand them. And then you have to upgrade and improve certain resources. Now that's kind of all in one, which I like. It makes it much more impactful decision. And then on top of that, you're building, building buildings on these different tiles too. And so you're kind of mixing and matching the two. It's something that I really enjoy. The districts I think are really cool. In Civ 6, it would be like, I'm going to build a military district. And then you'd pick a tile where you want to do that. And then you'd build a bunch of military buildings within that one district. Or there'd be like the economic district, stuff like that. Whereas in this game, it's a little bit more freeform. You can just put up to 2 buildings on each tile, and it will form a district of its own. And so you can go for like certain bonuses. Certain buildings are good with each other, or you can just kind of spread them out far and wide if you want to expand your borders and range and stuff like that too. So some interesting mechanics going on there. I really like all that stuff. In terms of like the resources, that's kind of the same as it's always been. You got your food and your production, which are main ones. You got your happiness over there. I think the water resources are much more better implemented in Civ 5 in particular. It was such a like awful thing to do because normally you'd have your worker, they'd go around, they build a mine, and then they go over build a road, they go over build another mine. But like if you wanted to improve a water resource like fish or pearls or something, you have to like build a boat, send the boat out there, and then the boat would get like used. It'd be like a one-time use thing rather than it being like a worker boat that would go and improve multiple things. And in this, because of that expansion thing, they've just made it like a lot simpler. It's a lot better. So I think that's good. They've kind of balanced out those things. And then influence is I think this was in Civ 6, but influence is kind of a new resource. You're accumulating influence in the same way you're accumulating other stuff, and that's what you're using to like work with these city states, and that's also what you're using for trade deals with other civs. And it's like it's a really, I found in the early game in particular, really tricky to balance that, because you'll have people denouncing you and stuff, and like if you want to cancel some of those debuffs. You have to like spend your influence. You got to make sure you have some in the bank, because like you can't just, okay, I'll come back to this in 3 turns. Like you have to deal with it right now, and especially when you're trying to capture city states and all this other stuff. It's I found that it's a really fun resource to try and balance. So that's a really great addition. Other than that, some other new things, like there's masteries in the tech tree. So as you're going through and grabbing industrialization, for example, there might be like industrialization plus. So once you've got industrialization, you can go back and get that extra tier, and it'll give you some other like smaller bonus that's maybe related to the thing you got, or you could just keep blasting down the tech tree. So that's, you know, a good change, and it adds a little more variety there. What else do I want to say about this thing right here? I think maybe one of the last big things, new thing as well, is combat is potentially a lot better because of one simple change, which is that they've implemented army commanders, is what they call them. So an army commander is like a leader of an army. They've had like generals and stuff before, but now the way an army commander works is you have one army commander on the map, and you can take multiple units and like all put them all on one tile with that army commander. So now you can move like 6 units at a time with one movement of a commander, instead of, you know, requiring you to move, you know, 6 people one time, which is something that slows the game down massively, especially in the late game, which is why I normally hate the end game of Civ, is just moving all these units around. It's so annoying. It takes forever. But now you can kind of lug them all around as one, and the commander can also issue the attacks. So you can say like, attack this tile, and then everyone will go and spend their resources to go do it. So it just makes everything move a lot quicker. It's really cool. So I'm really liking that change. Units can also move like on rivers now. So normally they would have to like cross the river, be a slow thing. But you can also like move boats and stuff along rivers. So that also changes like a lot with combat, where maybe there's a city, you want to build your cities on rivers, but also got to be careful now, because like boats can use that if they want to attack you, like fly in some big battalion battleships and fly them down your rivers right to get to your city. So that's a really cool change. It adds a lot. It also really changes how you're moving around the map, maneuvering units and things like that as well. So those are some good changes. And then there's a lot of things I don't understand yet. I don't really get how religion works in this game. There's like in Civ 6, I know there was like a global warming system. I don't know if that's just not in here, or if that's something they're probably going to add it as DLC, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Civ 5 had like a big tourism system. I can't tell if that exists here. Trading, I barely have traded in this game at all with people. Like I don't really understand it very well. And then I know something Civ 6 had similar to global warming, was there's like floods and sandstorms and volcanoes erupting that'll like destroy some of your tiles and stuff. And that stuff is in here, and I like it, but I also feel like, man, I'm getting hit by a flood like every 3 or 4 turns, which just eats a ton of my resources. And I don't know if there's anything you can do to stop it, or if it's just luck of the draw, you just get bopped for a few turns. Whereas like plagues and sandstorms are at least a lot more rare. They do occur, and they'll do like, man, if a plague comes through your city, oh my god, you get absolutely destroyed. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing you can do until like much later on in the game, when you get like physicians as like a unit, which is like way down the tech tree. So yeah, there's a lot of things I still don't understand about this game, but yeah, those all those little changes, like those are the kind of things I'm looking for, and I feel like they've made a lot of improvements to make the game just move snappier and make decisions easier. But then because the UI sucks so much, it like all the time that is saved through those benefits is like pulled away, because it takes forever to just move around the menus and stuff. So, and you know, part of that is because I'm on controller, but you know, they're selling it on consoles, so it should be a good experience there too. So I know I just spewed a million things at you, but yeah, any questions or thoughts on all mentioned there?
The other thing I was wondering about, like you mentioned, like riverways are kind of accessible now. But like, has there been any other like combat changes compared to other games? I know that's always been the big thing for me in turn-based games, is the combat's just not as exciting as, of course, real-time strategy. But like, does it feel very similar to what they've made in the past? Like, was the jump from 5 to 6 like a big jump? I imagine there must have been a little bit different from like the older ones, like back in the Civ 3 days. They must have improved quite a bit of things, even just in 5. But yeah, how does it feel overall?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple interesting changes. I mean, I'm not really usually a war guy. As I said, in Civ 3 back in the day, me and my cousin were like, oh yeah, we were nuking everyone. That's all we know how to do. But I've matured past that. Now I'm an economics guy. I'm a science guy. That's the kind I want to go for the culture win, that kind of stuff. So I think the commander is like a huge change, and that is really great. That helps a lot. There are some other weird changes. Like normally, in every other Civ game, like your city can like do an attack for free. You know, it's like it has like a free catapult almost. You can like launch an attack. So if you're getting bombarded, you could normally have like a free defense system. That is not the case here. Your city can't attack by default. So you need to have a unit. And I think that's one of the reasons they added this commander thing, is because you don't have that natural defense, you're kind of encouraged to have an army commander kind of on every city. And then, plug however many units you want into that. And so now you have like natural defense. And when people are coming in, you can lash out and do that kind of stuff. So I think that's probably the biggest change. But otherwise, if you don't like the combat of the other games, you're probably going to not like it here. And honestly, I don't really love the Civ combat either. That's why I don't do that stuff a lot. But I do think the commander is a great addition. There also is like a fleet commander too, so it's the same thing for boats. You can stack multiple boats inside of one fleet commander, so kind of two separate units that accomplish the same sort of thing there. And then I think other than that, another change is like normally you can build a city wall, right, and that'll just give your city extra defense, more HP. But you can also put at some point you can put defenses on certain districts and tiles. So I think that would be a strategic thing, like building walls out essentially on different parts of your city and kind of trying to decide, what are my choke points going to be? Where do I want to defend when I do have someone coming in for an attack? So maybe a little bit more strategy there as well. And then what else? I mean, they've made some changes to like upgrading units and like tech tree stuff. So it seems like there's a bit more there in terms of like strategy that you could do in terms of like how do your units want to improve? How do you want to attack with them? That kind of thing. And I think maybe the last change too is, and this maybe sounds like not much of a change, but I think overall has been, is normally the early game of Civ can be such a nuisance because you'll have barbarians all over the map, which are just like random NPC units, not part of any Civ. They never have, never will be, but they're just like a little camp of raiders pretty much. And they'll just go around, they'll trash your resources, they'll attack your units. And early game, they're good to attack because then you can level up your units, get some XP on them. But for the most part, they're just like extremely annoying. And so they've actually just removed barbarians completely, but instead now the city-states have different temperaments. And so certain city-states by default will be chill, happy, peaceful, whatever. And you can go talk to them and make peace with them. And then there's other ones that'll be hostile. And that's always been the case. But now instead of the hostile city-states just being like easy to frustrate, now they are like, they'll attack on site by default. And so they are kind of like instead of barbarians, you have like more meaningful barbarians, like named barbarians. And so it makes like the decisions of going to take out the city-states a lot more interesting. It's like, okay, do I want to fight these barbarians, try and kill them and disperse this? Or do I want to try and befriend them over time using my influence that I've accumulated to, one, make them to a point where they like me enough where they're not just going to attack me on site, but then also maybe further down the line, I'll incorporate them. So that's kind of a big decision of, okay, do I want to befriend these guys and incorporate them? Or do I just want to fight them forever? Or do I just want to fight and kill them, get them off the map, but now I can't incorporate them later? So I think that's made some good decision-making there. It's just made barbarians kind of less annoying. Like they feel more implemented into the world into a better way. So I think that's another good change. But I think the short answer is no, the combat's not changed a whole heck of a lot. At least from what I've experienced. I haven't even used like planes and stuff. So we'll see how, because that's always been a kind of a mechanic I haven't loved, is like thinking about where your planes are stationed and how much range they have. It's kind of been weird. So yeah, from what I've experienced, it's been fine, but pretty much the same as like any other Civ experience.
Right on. Yeah, no. I mean, you already answered. My other thing I was going to ask was just like the victory conditions, because that's always like an interesting aspect for me in Civ. Like even in Beyond Earth, there was just some really like high sci-fi like end game scenarios where you just like basically simulate all of old Earth into the robot army, whatever the hell you might be making. So
right.
I love like the twist on like the classic historical ideas of what Civ does, because you have like the landmarks in there, but you could be a completely different nation that has the pyramids in New York or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. No, I do think the inclusion of having different quote-unquote victory conditions per age, I think, is a great change. I talked about how that works, of how you're getting those age points and progressing that age. But like, for example, in the exploration age, a big part of the economic one is to do these treasure fleets. So the idea there is you settle on lands that are off your base continent, so on those islands or other continents that exist out there, and you're finding things like oranges or spices, like these exotic ingredients, and then you kind of settle there, get a mine, get whatever plantation it is to work that resource, and then eventually you'll get like a treasure fleet, so just a boat full of these supplies, and you have to ferry them back to your mainland, back to your, not necessarily capital, just any city you have on your main continent. And so that was kind of like a fun mini game of, one, going to capture these resources, ones that I was trying to find that are different than what I currently have, but then also making sure that they have a good, safe route to get back home, making sure they're defended and that kind of stuff. So that kind of just felt like a separate win condition because my goal was to get like 30 of those delivered within the age or something to get like the maximum age bonus. And the more of those age bonuses you get, you also get like bonus stats kind of going into that next age. So additional perks you can essentially put on your different things like cultural, economics, military, those kind of things. So yeah, I think it's cool to have, before there's always been like 4 or 5 win conditions, and now there's kind of like 15 to 20-ish, if you implement these other things into your kind of general goal, where your goals are at that certain time. And of course you could just ignore all that and just go science and just get insane amounts of science and go for the space race. I'm sure you could still do that, but I think the game does a good job of incentivizing you to be a bit more of a varied nation, because I don't think any nation's been super successful by like only focusing on one thing ever and nothing else, and you got to have that mix, right? So yeah, I think that's been a good change there. So there you go. There is Civilization 7. It's a cool game, but it's also an early access game, kind of. So buyer beware, I guess, is the moral of the story there. I'm curious how much more I'll play of this game, because I'm even for myself, I'm kind of like, okay, once I'm done this current match, maybe I'll just let it cook for another few months on the DLC, or not necessarily the DLC front, just like patches and get that UI a bit better, and then come back and play a bit more. I'll probably do some more quick match games and just try and blast through a bit more just to explore some of the other civs and things like that. But yeah, super enjoyable game. Like I said, I've already put a shit ton of hours into it, and probably after we're done this, I'm probably going to go play a few more turns, and hopefully not too late, because I got to get to bed at some point. But
One more turn. It's the classic.
It's always that one more turn, dude.
Yeah.
Speaking of one more turn, how about we take one ad break and we'll be right back. I don't know if that transition made a whole lot of sense, but we are back. Kirklin, you been playing anything these last couple weeks here?
Yeah, I've been dabbling in a couple things here. I'll start off by shouting out Jurassic World Evolution 2. Basically Roller Coaster Tycoon, but with dinosaurs.
Yeah, I can't remember if I played 1 or 2. I forget which one I tried.
Number 2 is on the PlayStation catalog, so I just randomly.
You know how I can find out? I can go on the great
Parks.
Backloggd.com, and I can find out which one I played.
Shouts out to Backloggd. Yeah, no, I never played the first game. I just randomly was watching some Jurassic Park and got the itch, and I don't know. I just wanted another strategy thing to play on the console, so I booted that up, and man, I was having lots of fun with it. Basically, the idea of it. It's funny because it's set between 2 horrible movies for me, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. It's like set between that.
Right, so you have the characters from the movies, right?
Yeah, definitely not Chris Pratt. They have Owen Grady, but it's like a completely different guy. And
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, exactly.
I played number 2. Yeah, I looked it up.
Okay,
that's when I played,
nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, then like the main campaign is you're just kind of going to different areas like in America and like setting up these wildlife, like havens, I guess, for these dinos. And I was just like hooked by the gameplay. I like was just having a lot of fun, like flying around the helicopter and then just tranking some dinos, taking them back, making
that was fun. I like doing that.
Making a pen for them, and it's the type of game I don't know how much I'm really gonna play it, but I'm enjoying what I am getting out of it. I remember Taylor Field really hot on that first game, and I don't even really remember seeing too much of the gameplay in that, but. Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun playing those Roller Coaster Tycoon games back in the day. Other city managers, like I've always just had a lot of fun playing it. So, throwing the dino mix in it, it's a good time. It definitely reminds me of. You ever play Tropico?
No, I've not played it.
It's a lot more like. Instead of it being like an open sandbox, I think they have the sandbox mode in it, but in those games, it was always like you had like a goal to do.
More scenario based?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Once you finish those scenarios, it kind of ends the mission and goes on, which never was my like cup of tea growing up. Like I always just love the just open-ended like sandbox game. You just go in there, you make your cities and whatnot, but they definitely have some fun things that you have to kind of deal with, whether it's like a natural event, like a big sandstorm coming in or something. And yeah, no, just managing it. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, I don't know how much more I'm really going to be playing it, but I am glad I checked it out. So shouts out to the PlayStation catalog for having some good games on there.
Yeah, I definitely at some point want to jump back in there. And I think the scenario play makes it a bit more of a game where you normally those kind of games you just binge and play an absurd amount of, but because of the scenarios, you can kind of piecemeal it and be like, you know what, I kind of just feel like playing Jurassic tonight and just go do one scenario or something like that. So it's cool.
No, absolutely. Terra Nil actually was very similar in that sense, where it kind of had like a specific thing to do.
A very nice kind of boiled down version of that genre. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, shouts out to Jurassic Evolution. The other game that man, did you ever play Super Monkey Ball at any time in your life, whether on GameCube? I think Miniclip might have had like a
I feel like I've played like the mini clip ones.
Yeah.
Like I've played a lot of games like that where you're rolling a ball around, but I don't know if I've ever actually played Monkey Ball, which is crazy. Cause
Super Monkey Ball.
Sorry.
Don't undersell it here.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I was interested in this. I can't remember whenever we watched the because they have Super Monkey Ball Mania HD, which is like a collection or remake or something for.
Dude, they release like 3 collections a year. I feel like those games. It's so hard to keep up with what the heck's going on.
So I remember it might have been last year. Like I saw gameplay for the game, and I just like man, like I totally forgot about those types of games, and like just want to plug it in, and then sure enough, Shay just randomly mentioned Super Monkey Ball, and now she wanted to play it, and then it was on sale, 75% off on PlayStation. So like, oh man, it's perfect time. 1 to 4 players. This is so exciting. Booted it up. I think it was yesterday actually. We plugged it into play, and we were pretty disappointed because it's the type of multiplayer that it's just like the bonus mini games that you can do like multiplayer, not like the main story. Which definitely was deflating just because we were like getting all amped to go through the story together.
Well, what is the multiplayer? Like, is it like combat where you're trying to bounce each other off the map or something?
There's races, so it's kind of like a Super Mario Kart scenario, but you're in the balls. There's like mini golf, there's baseball, like just a bunch of different modes. There's some battle mode, and like it is fun, but it's not the main game. I feel like thinking about it, the main game doesn't really make sense for 2-player unless you have like literally split screen with 2 completely different maps, because you are you're moving the whole terrain every time you move your joystick. That's how you get around the map.
True.
In the main story, so in hindsight, it doesn't really make sense how you do it co-op, but nonetheless, we were a little disappointed. But yeah, we were just we played a little bit of the mini games, but then we were just kind of swapping out remotes, like playing a level here and there, and then I would do a level, and it's just so high octane, and like the music is insane. It's I can only imagine what it's like. What I imagine walking into Tokyo and just being overwhelmed by all like the neon lights and everything, and the like the anime music and everything. That is what this gameplay is. It is just so in your face, crazy music, and it's very fun though. It's a fun game. So we played a little bit of it last night there, but yeah, shouts out to Super Monkey Ball, because I remember playing. I think it was on the GameCube, the one that I played, and then of course like the mini clip. Whatever copy they had. I don't think it was the same license, but it was definitely same idea there. But yeah,
nice.
So yeah, shouts out Super Monkey Ball, and then a couple shooters to shout out here. We played some COD on the weekend, and
God, don't remind me.
I will say
I lost my touch, Kirklin. I don't know what happened. Like it's funny, I feel like
it ebbs and flows. It's like the tide,
I need to rant a little bit. So with Warzone, we haven't played in a bit, so naturally there's a bit of that. But I feel like, in all the time we've played Warzone, which is mostly like Taylor and Travis, then me and you will jump in every once in a while, but they're kind of holding it down. I feel like, I never know what the meta is. I never know what's going on with these maps. I never know anything that is occurring. But like enough of that like legacy Call of Duty skill and the thousands of hours I've played over my life, I'm still like, I'm fine. I get enough kills. I can make it so I'm doing well for the team. I can hold it down. We play the same map over and over, so you can kind of learn it pretty well too, right? And I don't know what it was. I think it was when Black Ops. What the hell was the game that came out last year? Was it 6? Yeah.
It was 6.
When that came out last year, and me and Taylor were doing the review, so I jumped in and played some multiplayer, like just regular Call of Duty multiplayer, and I was getting absolutely wrecked. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. Warzone, I can still hold it down, but something about multiplayer, it's too twitchy. I don't know these maps. It's like people are omni-moving mimics all over the place. I can't handle this. And I don't know what it was. When we played Warzone over the weekend, I just got absolutely trashed. I got like 3 kills the whole night. Did absolutely horrendous. Was missing every shot. And I was watching some of the kill cams. The ways some of these people were moving around me, just sprinting and then sliding, omni movement, doing crazy stuff. I'm like, maybe that is part of it, but I'm hitting 30 this year, and maybe that tech skill, that reaction time, maybe it's just gone, Kirkland. I might just be, my Call of Duty career might just be over. I don't know.
You know, in your defense, you did tell me that you played like 7 hours of Civ right before that session. So that I feel like that is a factor.
You think that
would
makes
say-
me worse? Maybe
I
I'm
would
too.
say retire. Like maybe your eyes were a
Okay.
little bit civved out a little bit.
My
but,
legs felt not great, so I mean that's part of it. Not that you need legs for Call of Duty. But.
I mean, I've had many of those evenings where it's funny because, like you said, like we definitely ebb and flow. Like the times that we are playing COD, I feel like I'll go where I'm playing like every weekend, and then I won't touch it for like a year, and just that's it. And then maybe I'll play a session, it does not go well, and then I'm like, I'm not playing this game again. I like uninstall right away. But
how'd you guys do after I left? Did you get a win? I wasn't holding you back.
We got a win. You were with us though, weren't you, for that win?
Oh, I think I was. I still didn't do
Yeah.
anything that game, but
I think
we got a win.
we got a win. And then
Travis
a
got
couple,
the win.
like,
We went
top
upstairs,
threes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, he popped off there. So, yeah, just the one win on the evening, but
Okay.
a couple close calls. But no, it's tough game, man. But I will say, on the 2 sessions that I've had so far on this kind of like new Warzone, I don't even know if it is a new Warzone, new Warzone to
Who
me.
knows? Yeah.
Guns are feeling pretty good for me. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like just my play style, the type of guns that I was using, the snipers feel really nice. Like I feel like I was getting some really nice headshots, and just like the reactions that I'm getting out of like the way that I'm using the guns or what's happening. I feel like that is a good meta for me. Like sometimes if I have like a sniper line up a guy in the head, shoot him, he doesn't even go down, and I'm like, what the fuck is this game? Like, why am I playing this? Like this gun is supposed to drop people, and it's not. So I do like the meta, at least for what I was experiencing. I might have just had, a lucky night for just the people that I was facing. But no, it felt pretty good and pretty fun. But
We'll see what happens when you're turning 30.
Yeah.
You might fall off
Hey,
the
it's
wagon.
close.
Just like
I just turned 29. Let me enjoy the last of my 20s.
yeah.
I absolutely hate though how they like reset like the classes every like Warzone. I don't know if it's every COD game, but it feels like every time I play, I'm like level 1. I can't make a loadout. I have to like, even if I unlock a gun, I have to completely level it up just to get attachments on it. Like it's just so annoying, especially for like someone that doesn't play these COD games. Like I just play Warzone every once in a while, and I have the guns that I've like always had, whether I've unlocked them in a battle pass or something in the past. But I just like can't make a class because I'm not level 5. And you play like one game and you get level 5, so it's like, why even like stop me from doing that? Like just let me fucking make a class.
That's so annoying. Yeah.
Bugs me up, especially like whenever we're getting back into it. I feel like I get so excited, like, oh yeah, the boys again. I'm deleting 5 games off my PlayStation so I can fucking play Warzone.
Dude, it literally took me like 3 days of downloading to get that thing done. It kept stopping and starting. I don't know if there's like a data cap on my internet or something, but it was rough.
Oh yeah, so I was getting really excited, then I booted up and I just have no classes or anything. It's annoying. So I hope they change that. But
you gotta watch cutscenes that no one cares about. I think you can actually skip them now at least, but it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, they make it too complicated there. But no, I had a couple of good sessions there, and then because we've just been had a couple sessions of that, I was just in the shooter mindset. I jumped back into Tom Clancy's Breakpoint there. The game Second Wildlands, I guess. It's like the unofficial sequel, I guess, but it is the sequel.
Right.
And I love that game so much. I feel like it's probably like one of my favorite tactical shooters that I played. And just in the sense of like the accessibility options and stuff that they provide the player. I commend them for doing that because it has 2 different gameplay systems where it's kind of like the Division or Destiny, where it's like not like instant headshot kills where like you're just loading in like damage, like that sort of idea. You pick up like purple loot, different like rare loot items like that. Like they have that system, but then you can play the game in a completely different way where it is just an immersive way where like there's no item levels or anything like that. Like if you're getting headshots, you're getting kills, and that's the way that I like to play those games. So I like that it has that other mode for maybe like a more online multiplayer like setting, but then they have like the way that I like to play where I can completely like change the HUD, so there's basically nothing on there, have like really like hardcore difficulty like settings on there, and that's not even with mods, like it's just out of the box. So really commend them for just like the ways that you can play that game. And for me, it's I'm loving what they're providing me, and just tons of quality of life improvements from that first game. The storyline and the cutscenes is still as cheesy as ever. I pretty much just skip them every time because they're so corny to me. Just some of the dialogue they have. John Bernthal's in there, so it's kind of funny to have him as like the antagonist. Sorry, but no, it's gameplay wise, it is such a phenomenal game, and really just great like storyline without like the cutscenes, just kind of like the threats and stuff that they set up. And another thing that, of course, you can customize this, but I love how they're basically how the waypoint system works is, again, you can have it as simple as there's just like a spot on the map that shows you exactly where you have to go, or they have it in a not guided setting where like you'll basically have to do like investigating and figure out where certain locations are on the map, and it'll tell you like it's northwest of this lake, and so you like kind of find the region, and then like that's how you kind of find where your goals are, which is just, it makes the exploring just so much more interesting, and you know, as opposed to just having an arrow that you're just following to get to your target. So yeah, really impressed with that game, and it's not a new game either. Like the version I'm playing is PS4. It's on the PlayStation catalog, so that's
nice.
how I'm accessing it. But yeah, having lots of fun with it, and it's definitely scratching that shooter itch.
Nice, good stuff. I had one other game I've been playing, but I'm actually going to save it for later in the episode for a reason that you'll find out when I bring it up. A nice little surprise. But how about we get into this? So there last week was a PlayStation State of Play. I think it's been a little bit since we've had, well, I guess it's been a long time since we have a PlayStation Showcase, I suppose. But we had a State of Play here that I thought was really great. It was like 45 minutes. A lot of it is like reminding you of games that are coming out in the next few months. These things always kind of have to have like, like what was there in there? Like Monster Hunter, Split Fiction, WWE, Pirate Yakuza, like all these things we've seen trailers and stuff of before, just kind of reminding you of their release dates when they're coming out. Then there's also like a couple fresh new things in there, a couple good surprises, some things I kind of didn't really expect, some DLC updates, and then they even had like some just PlayStation Plus updates, some things coming to that as well. So really just a very well-rounded show. I thought it was really great. And yeah, I mean, it's, there's no fluff in here. There's a couple developers talking about stuff, but that was just giving you good context about the games and the people who make them. But there isn't anything weird in between. Like it was just kind of very to the point. So yeah, I thought it was really good. As usual, we're not going to break down every single thing that was in this because there's a lot in here. And as I mentioned, a lot of it's like, what do you want me to say about Monster Hunter? Okay, we got another trailer here. We've seen a million of these trailers. Okay, we don't need to talk about it anymore. But I want to start here because I know that I have with me in the very room a Sonic fanboy. Is Sonic Racing, I'm guessing this is a series that has existed before, but there was Sonic Racing Crossworlds here.
Yeah.
Is this the first thing? Has there been ones before? What's going on here?
I feel like there's been more of these. The classic racer that I used to play was Sonic Riders, I think is what it was called, which was like
Sonic Riders.
It was like a snowboarding type game, but like not snowboarding.
Oh yeah,
like,
okay, I've seen that box art. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like the big Sonic racer that I had played, but I feel like I have seen this before. It just kind of fits in that like Crash Team Racing,
Yeah,
just
it looks like there's been a
not
few.
Mario Kart.
There was one back in 2019. I'm sure there was ones like back in the day too.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a new one coming out. Do you have any interest in this? I mean, I thought as far as kart racers go, I thought it looked really polished, looked really good. The maps looked awesome. I'm not really a Sonic guy in terms of the nostalgia. I couldn't tell you, oh, that's Green Hill Zone, that's Red Hill Zone. Like, I don't know any of that stuff, but I thought it looked really solid.
Yeah, no, it looks fun. It's just maybe like not the genre that I'm like seeking out really, just because anytime I'm playing these types of games, it's usually with like a friend setting. It's usually just Mario Kart. It's like that same.
No one wants the guy who's like, "Hey guys, let's play Sonic Racing."
Exactly. But who knows if it's easy to access? Yeah, I'll definitely boot it up.
Yeah. After that, there was Digimon Story: The Stranger. I feel like this is another series like Monkey Ball. There's like Digimon. There's like a bunch of these games coming out every year. I don't know what's going on with Digimon over here. But what is your touchstone with Digimon? I don't know if we've talked about it before. Do you have a nostalgia for these little mons here?
Very like fleeting memory of Digimon. It unfortunately just slipped through the cracks between the Pokemon and the Yu-Gi-Oh and like those types of. Beyblade even, like I feel like Digimon was just like the lesser out of all of those for me.
For me, it was like on the Beyblade tier, I feel like. Yeah. But definitely below Pokemon, below Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, that's fair. I had a couple Digimon cards. I think I had like an action figure of like classic like Cubone looking thing, like the
Right.
main
Yeah.
Digimon is what I call him. But I'm just kind of surprised that it's like still going, like because as you said, like there is a lot of games like this. But it also surprised me just seeing more Yu-Gi-Oh games. Like there's like modern Yu-Gi-Oh games, which is just
Right.
like surprising to me. So yeah, I was pretty shocked to see Digimon here, and just kind of curious, like if is there still a show that's on, like a modern Digimon show? I don't know.
Probably. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it's it must be. I feel like that's probably a big reason why they make some of these games is to just keep the interest level there for the younger generation and all that. I think as far as, it looked like kind of a double A tier sort of thing, but I thought it looked good. Looked cool. So
Yeah,
shout outs
looked
to that game. Next up was a game called Lost Soul Aside. This is I believe a new studio making this. This game coming out May 30th, and I feel bad about this, but I feel like every time there's a PlayStation showcase or a save play anything, there's like 3 or 4 of these games in here that all look like this. And so I don't know what the special sauce of this one is. It looks like it's got a little Devil May Cry in it. It's got so much Final Fantasy that I'm like, I was wondering if this was a Final Fantasy game because this guy looked like Cloud, that guy looked like Aerith. I'm like,
I feel like there's
these
4
people-
Final Fantasies that I looked at tonight.
Yeah, so this game kind of falls in that realm, which is not really my cup of tea. Visually it looks good and all that, but I just don't know what the special sauce
Yeah.
is.
I like the aerial traversal on like the soul looking thing. It looked beautiful. It's funny because yeah, as I said, it felt like Final Fantasy. I feel like I saw a couple of Final Fantasy games in here, and every time I see these trailers for a Final Fantasy like game, just the gameplay that's similar to that, I'm always just like captivated. I'm like, man, this game looks so gorgeous and looks just so beautiful. I'm sure it's amazing, but I most likely just will not ever play it because I haven't played Final Fantasy. So if I wanted to get it, I would get it in there. I still to this day want to get back into Final Fantasy 15. I think I was like 20 hours into that game and just put it down, never got back into it. So I feel like dirty if I want to jump into like one of these without having to go back and finish what I've started. But yeah, no, it's interesting looking trailer. I think all these types of trailers look good, whether it's this one or the other one, Tales of something that we'll talk about.
Tides of Annihilation, perhaps?
Tides of Annihilation, not Tales.
Yeah, did that one call out to you a little bit more?
That one had a lot more juice for me. I think I had just
that one had a little of
seen-
that near sauce, a little Elden Ring juice in there.
That's what it was. Beautiful
little Expedition
like, cover.
33. Yeah.
I booted up the PlayStation Store on the weekend and I saw it there. Like that was the first time I saw like the cover and I'm like, what is this game? Like this just looks gorgeous. And then I saw the trailer and yeah, it looks pretty impressive. And I don't know, just more sauce compared to the other one for me, whether it's just the characters or the action that was on screen.
Yeah, I thought Tides of Annihilation looked really cool, and yeah, to be honest, it is in that similar realm as the game we just talked about, and I already forget the name of. Oh my god, it's like Last Soul Aside.
Yeah.
There you go. That's
not
maybe
the best name.
I mean, neither is Tides of Annihilation, but yeah, like just looking at some of the giant monsters and the creation, the art style of this game. Of course, there's a lot of cute girls in there too, so that's something that'll catch the eye. It's got the Stellar Blade element to it. I thought the voice actor who plays the protagonist had just like the coolest voice ever, so that was definitely a selling point too. But yeah, I think this game looked really sweet. It definitely had a lot of Elden Ring DNA in it, as I mentioned. So yeah, this game's definitely on my radar. I think it looks incredibly cool. It's maybe not necessarily my cup of tea in terms of like the general genre stuff, but it is a genre kind of sphere I want to get a little bit more into. So maybe I'll check that one out. So shout outs to Tides of Annihilation. Next up, Directive 8020. So this is another next game from Supermassive, Until Dawn, The Quarry, those developers. This is their more sci-fi setting game that we've seen. I forget if we've seen a trailer or just like a teaser for this. But we've finally seen a pretty good amount of it here. So the setting is space station, classic, some sort of alien thing on board that's growing into people and making them all pussy and weird looking and monsters everywhere. I think this looks really cool. I mean, I'm a big sci-fi guy, especially right now. This is a story we've seen a million times, but the fact that it's a Supermassive game and you get to kind of play through it, and there can definitely be consequences, certain characters dying or surviving based on your choices and all that. I think this seems really cool. So I've never dipped into a Supermassive game somehow, but I don't know. This could be the first one. I really like the look of what we saw here.
Yeah, no, I haven't played any of these games, but they've always just been like on the other side of the window for me, where I'm just intrigued. I really want to play through one of these. What would you call, like a narrative cinematic experience type game? Still haven't played Detroit Become Human. Is that what that one was called?
That sure is.
There's just many out there that I haven't jumped into, and I feel like every time I want to, I feel like I need like a good session. Like I don't want to just play it for like 20 minutes. You know, like I want to fully get in like at least like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour plus session, like a movie would be to go through these. But no, it looks really impressive, and I really like the sci-fi setting and just the voice actors and everything. It just looks really well made.
Yeah, definitely. And the next up is a game called The Midnight Walk, coming out on May 8th. This is kind of like a horror exploration-y sort of game. It's funny, when I first saw this, I'm like, this kind of looks like a something made in Dreams. It kind of has that Dreams aesthetic, where it's like a little claymation-y, all of that. In terms of some of like, I mean, this is a game that is not just VR, but it is also on VR. So I think some of the shots, what they're showing off in the trailer, are trying to be like, oh, this is what you would look like picking up a torch and lighting the fire and then like holding it around. But then obviously it also is just like a regular first person game you can play outside of VR. I looked that up specifically because I was like, this game looks really cool, but I don't have VR. Can I still play this? And yeah, it seems like they're serving both audiences there. So I think that's cool because, you know, like, what is PlayStation doing with VR2 over there? Who the heck knows? But it seems like games like this might be a good way to fill the void, where you can put a game out, still get that PS5 player base in there, but then also get another cool VR looking title. I think this game looks awesome. I love the art style. I love the character design in particular. I just think the art team on this game is going wild. I don't know what to really expect gameplay wise, but if, you know, a spooky game with cool characters, an interesting looking story, kind of a weird dream-like state situation, I think it looks really interesting. So this one's definitely it's on my radar now. I like it.
Yeah, it looks spooky. I don't know if I'll jump in there, but I appreciate the art style at least.
Definitely not
Majora's
a
Mask,
game.
honestly. The main character, just the design of his face, it reminds me of that.
Yeah. And then afterwards, we're getting into Onimusha, which had a new trailer for Way of the Sword, as well as a re-release, I guess, of Onimusha 2 that was announced here. So this one I want to talk about a little bit because back at, I think it was the Game Awards, there was a trailer for Onimusha Way of the Sword, the new Onimusha game, and we didn't even talk about it in the Game Awards recap episode because I didn't know anything about the series, and I don't think you guys do either. So I was like, we're not really going to bring it up because what do we have to say? And then afterwards, listening to like some other podcasts and stuff, people were popping off that Onimusha was coming back. And I was like, hey, what's going on here? What am I missing? What is going on with Onimusha? And looking into it a bit more. A lot of people compare it to like Resident Evil, like some of the early Resident Evil games in terms of the spooky vibes to it. And obviously it's like a different kind of like samurai setting and combat and all that. But just in terms of like the energy of it, it kind of has like an early Resident Evil vibe to it. And apparently that first game's really short, like 3 or 4 hours or something like that. Just like a short, scary kind of experience sort of game. So it sounds like my cup of tea. And the original game's like on Steam and stuff. I think they did like at some sort of remastery thing. So it's just up on Steam for like $15-20. So it's a series I want to check out. I think before this new one comes out, I'm going to go back and play that first Onimusha. And then, I don't know, maybe check out 2, see how that goes. Maybe 2, maybe pick a Way of the Sword or something. I don't know too much more about it other than that, but I think it's a series that I've always heard the name, but I never really thought about it or looked into it more. But the more I've heard about it, it sounds pretty compelling. So I don't know. This is one that I'm excited to go do a little research on. So I think, look forward to at some point on Sidequest in the next year. Nice. Some update for me when I finally jumped into the series and can give you a little bit more tea on it.
It was funny. I had never heard of this series either, but when I had watched it, I'd watched the modern trailer first, and then like later on, I saw like the remake of like, was it the second one or something like that?
I guess so. Yeah,
can't remember seeing it. Yeah, so then I saw that later on, but I didn't see the name, and I'm like, man, this totally reminds me of that other game that we saw. So I had a funny little moment there, but no, I've completely not heard of these before, and I don't know. I wasn't too impressed by the trailers, but there's just a lot of games out there, so I gotta be picky and choosy these days.
Well, I'll put you on that episode of SideQuest when I talk about it.
Okay, perfect. Yes,
can tell you all about it. Next up, good news for Kirklin here, because you have Metal Gear Solid 3 on your draft, and it is officially coming out in August. if it doesn't get delayed, of course. It's a remake remaster scenario, but I think Kirkland, we debated on that draft, like, should you be allowed this game? Is this remake remaster? Is this new? What's going on here? But it's got Ape Escape DLC, and that wasn't in the original game as far as I know. So it's a new game as far as I can tell. And then I think after this trailer came out, Xbox posted their version of the trailer, and they have like Bomberman DLC, because obviously Ape Escape is like a PlayStation property. So I guess the different versions, I don't know what this is going to be, but that was like a tease at the end of the trailer here. Kind of the new thing is that somehow Ape Escape is going to be in here. Probably be some mode where you're going around these maps and like catching apes hiding in bushes and things like that. But yeah, what did you think about this trailer?
I was really impressed by this trailer. I feel like I didn't have a lot of hype for the announcement of it, just because I don't like Metal Gear Solid is an interesting one for me, where I'm just so like fascinated by the series, even though I haven't like really dove into it that much. The one that I played the most would have been Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns and the Patriots. I think it was 4. It was the one on the PS3, and I got obsessed with that game. Like, that was one I would go to my friend's house and I would just watch him play it, and I was just so interested by what it was. And then of course he let me rent it, and then that's when I really got to jump in there, and then played a little bit of the one that came after that one. I can't remember which one it was, but didn't really get into it too much. But again, it's another weird one where like I went through and just watched like the YouTube cinematics for these games like so many years ago, like probably when I played through 4, just because I'm like, well, I'm probably never going to play those PlayStation 1 games, so I'm just going to watch the cinematics. And I'm pretty sure I've seen all of them for this one too, so it was kind of interesting just seeing like the modern remake of it. But yeah, I know. I think it just looks better than I was expecting. Even though I knew it was like a from the ground up remake, it still just looks really impressive. And I don't know if I'm gonna get it. I think it's really gonna be a matter of like getting closer to, if that pressure just keeps building on the on just the hype level, because that happens to me sometimes. I'm a victim to the FOMO, the fear of missing out when we get
civilization,
closer.
Man. I hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see, but yeah, I was definitely impressed by this.
Yeah, I've definitely been put in a it's not an actually tough situation, but what feels like a tough situation for a gamer, because I got that Metal Gear Solid 1 volume thing collection that has 3 in there, right? So it's like, okay, it's not the most recent version. It is a remaster to some extent, I believe, the version that's in there. So it's like, okay, I have access to that. I should probably go play through that version rather than paying $90 to get this version. But it does look great, and this seems like maybe the best way to play the game. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when it gets closer to. But the other thing that was a big selling point for me, and the curiosity factor, is that the other game that I've been playing in the last couple of weeks here, Kirkland, is Ape Escape.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I downloaded Ape Escape on PlayStation Plus there, because they have like 5 or 6 of these games on PlayStation Plus. And yeah, I've been playing through the original Ape Escape, which is a series, again, kind of like Onimusha, I've always heard of, but I never knew anything about it. And then I think what kind of put it top of mind again was playing Astrobot recently. And Astrobot, 6 or 7 of the levels in there are just like directly like, here's a level from Horizon, here's a level from like God of War. You just play as Aloy, play as Kratos, and one of them is pretty much an Ape Escape level. You're going around through the level, catching apes with a giant net and all that kind of stuff. So kind of similar there. And I think a lot of the team that works on Astrobot now are people who even worked on, Ape Escape all the way back in the day. So kind of that lineage there. And yeah, so I was like, I kind of want to jump in and check out, see what the heck is going on with Ape Escape. And yeah, I'm maybe like 10 or 12 or 15 levels in, something like that. I freaking love this game. This game is so fantastic. I highly recommend it for anyone who just loves a good like 3D platformer, especially like N64 3D platformer stuff. If you haven't played this, because even PlayStation 1, like I played a lot of Crash, played a lot of Spyro, but Ape Escape was never one that came across my radar. But goddamn, I love this game so much. And obviously I'm playing the first one. I'm curious to see how the sequels and stuff evolve or change the gameplay. But as far as this one goes, I think it came out in 99, so it would have been like 3 or 4 years after Mario 64. You can see a lot of that DNA is there, a lot of that influence of like some of these first 3D platformers. But this feels a little bit more constrained. You are going into levels, but the levels aren't quite on the scale of 64. They're much more smaller areas. You can go off the branching path in a couple different ways, but for the most part, you're dropped into like this little jungle area or snowy area, whatever it is. And you just have to catch like 5 apes, and each level has more than that, so you only have to catch a certain amount. And you're kind of incentivized even to like come back later when you have more upgrades for your character, because there's certain ones that maybe you can't access yet. So I don't know how much I'll do of that. We'll see. But yeah, it's just like the basic gameplay is really fun, just kind of cruising around, trying to sneak up on these apes, trying to catch them, doing a little platforming in between, solving little puzzles, basic stuff like that. The controls are really, really weird and really hard to get used to because, like, you know, you move around regularly, but then, like, you hit the right bumper to jump, which is immediately a little bit strange. And then you, like, flick the stick almost like skate to, like, swing your net at people. And then, like, a lot of the other controls are very like tactile as well. Like at some point you'll get into like a little raft and you have like your two paddles, and like to move the paddles you have to like roll the sticks as if you're like moving a paddle, and so if you like only move one, you know, you'll turn your boat like more this way or that way, and you can do it like opposite ways or do like quick bursts or like full rotations, and it is not easy to control whatsoever. It is incredibly janky, but it's really fun. Another upgrade you'll get is like this hula hoop around you essentially, and so you roll the stick around in like a big way like that, and then it'll like build up speed, and then you'll just dart off in that direction. You can go like full first person mode with a slingshot and like try and snipe people and stuff. So it feels like for 99, I feel like this game's doing some crazy stuff. Like there's a lot of variety in terms of the gameplay. It's funny, a couple of the upgrades are like directly things that are in Astrobot, so it's fun seeing that lineage now, or at least for me, it's like kind of seeing that in reverse a little bit. But yeah, if anyone has PlayStation Plus and you haven't played this game and you like 3D platformers, go play it. I am loving this game. It's so silly. The tone is hilarious. The monkeys are so funny. You get little stealth sequences as you're trying to sneak up on them as well. It's just a freaking great time. It's just a fun video game. There's not enough of those, you know? I just want like a fun video game that is immediately fun and there's no bloat and it's just fun. That's what this game is, and I love it.
They're few and far between. It's funny. I never actually have seen gameplay of this game before, but
Same
I've
scenario
always
as me,
seen
yeah.
the Ape Escape guy. So yeah, maybe I'll have to boot it up.
Check it out. And like I said, there's like tons of them on there, so I'm sure over the next few months I'll just binge through all these Ape Escape games, become an Ape Escape master, and be demanding a new one to come out right now. But yeah, I mean, I think based on like stealthing around in this game, you know, trying to sneak up on the monkeys and whatnot, or distracting them or stunning them from afar and then running up and grabbing them, like those seem like Metal Gear Solid-y things. So I'm curious to see what that mode is for Metal Gear Solid 3. Really curious to see what that's all about there.
That's fun.
Okay. Next up is a game that I wrote down as Hell Is Us, and I already kind of forget what the heck that was. So any thoughts on that one, or should I skip past it?
That one was really impressive, actually, from the trailer.
Is that the one that was like a little Death Stranding-y-ish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm remembering a little bit.
Very cinematic-y, so, you know, wait to see more gameplay and everything like that. But out of the gate, I was pretty impressed by this one. This one where just by seeing the name, I assumed it was just going to be like a World War II, like very basic game in that sense. But no, I was really surprised by the trailer, and it's on my radar for sure.
Mm-hmm. Then there was a DLC for Lies of P called Lies of P Overture, which kind of surprised me because that game came out in 2023. I want to say like the summer of 2023, so it's been a while. But I think that just goes to show that like they didn't make this DLC before the game came out to sell it later. You know, like take notes, Civilization. Like they released a game, people said we like your game, we want more, and then they went and made more. People love this game. I played for the first few hours. It's on Game Pass, and it is really great. I'm just like I'm so selective when it comes to the Souls. Like I also recently booted up like the Demon Souls remake and played for like 2 hours, and I was like, this game sucks. I hate this. You know, like I'm so selective, and like Elden Ring was like the perfect balance because it was more open. But this game is great. It's really, really cool. Great art style, great mechanics and all that. And I think the DLC looks cool. It's kind of a snowy sort of atmosphere in the city. It looks really, really interesting. So shout outs to that because I know a lot of people will be excited about that one. Mm-hmm. And then a game called Dreams of Another, which funnily enough also, even though it has dreams in the title, before that even popped up, I was like, this looks like it was made in dreams again, which I love. I love that vibe. I think that's really cool. The tagline for this game, I think, is really interesting. It is no creation without destruction. So the whole premise of this game is kind of tackling that as a theme, and then how can we tell that like through gameplay, through like this trippy world. So it's kind of like everything's made of voxels. Like you can see the makeup of everything broken down into chunks, even though it's a 3D game, right? And then I guess you're breaking through these things to create and turn them into new things. I don't really know. Like the gameplay looks really strange and odd, and I don't really understand how it works. It's a hard one to pitch, I think, but it's really interesting and weird. And I like that idea of like the genesis of this game starting from like that one simple like philosophical idea, and like how can we birth that into a video game that's like about gameplay. It's really interesting. So this one's definitely on my radar as like another trip. It's in that same ballpark as a Midnight Walk for me, as like this weird dreamscapey scenario. So it's cool looking. I'm intrigued by this one.
Yeah, definitely unique, just with the visuals and everything. And it was just a weird pairing of like really interesting, trippy visuals, art style, and then just like an RPG or like an M16 that he's holding. It's just like very like modern military weapons. So it was just an interesting pairing. So definitely memorable. So we'll wait and see closer to release.
Mm-hmm. And then another funny timing with the Ape Escape, another funny time thing is Days Gone is getting a remaster because, I talked to you about that about a month ago. And then with Travis last week again, I told him now that I'd beat the game, I kind of gave him some more thoughts on Days Gone. So really funny timing that they just announced this now. The remaster is coming out April 25th. Once again, just like the Horizon remaster or some of these Last of Us ones, this does not need to exist. But, it's probably going to make them some extra sales. They're going to get some money from people for the $10 upgrade. They'll get some people from playing it for the first time on PS5. And that's just how businesses work, I guess. But it's unfortunate that Sony Bend, since 2019, was working on a game that got canceled, and then the other thing he's been working on is this. It's like, okay, that's all you got from Bend, a huge studio that employs hundreds of people. Okay, we'll see how that pays off for you. But anyway, that's clearly my salty side of it coming through. This new version, it looks better, of course, but it's like that game already looked fantastic still. So who cares if it looks slightly better? It's adding a horde assault mode, which like the game already had bonus game assault things, but I guess these ones have more zombies because it's a PS5 and it can process more zombies on screen, I suppose. But like, I don't know, what's the difference between 500 and 600 zombies? Like, I don't know if there's much. We'll see. It has a speedrun mode, has a hardcore mode. You can tell my tone here that I just think this is such a useless thing to release. And I'm not salty because I already played it without this, because I'm never going to go back and play this additional stuff. This is so minor. The only good thing here is that they had like more accessibility options. That's great. More people can enjoy the game because there's all these other ways for people with certain disabilities and whatnot can access it. That's fantastic. But otherwise, kind of a waste of time. But it exists. Coming out April 25th.
Yeah, I have no comments.
How about this? Do you have a comment on your favorite game of last year, Stellar Blade, getting a new DLC from Nikkei, I guess is the property, is what it's called, which is funny because the only reason I've heard of this property is because I just got like ads on Reddit and stuff, and it's just like girls with huge boobs jiggling around, and it's like just looks like the horniest game of all time. And so it makes sense that it's getting added to Stellar Blade, a game that's so also pretty horny. But yeah, it seems like kind of similar to the Nier expansion, where it's just like some visual upgrades. I don't know if there's new levels, but
bonus mission I saw, and
there you
just
go. Cool.
just the exact same as the Nier DLC. So yeah, definitely not getting out for this one. I crossed my mind for the Nier one, but when I realized what you get, it's like there's no way that's worth it. So definitely not even for this one. And
yeah, that game. I think then they also paired that with like a coming to PC soon, I guess. So some kind of a reminder there of that.
The DLC will be releasing on PC and PlayStation like together.
Okay, cool.
I think the PC release is out soon, if not already. So
okay, sweet, sounds good. And then lady, I forget her name, came up on stage. Virtual stage, green screen stage, to talk about some PS Plus things. We don't normally talk about this kind of stuff on Sidequest because it's not super interesting. But Jedi Survivor's coming around. Lost Records is getting added on there. This was not part of the sequence, but Astrobot also is getting like 5 new levels coming over the next 5 weeks. I played the first one. It's more Astrobot, so it's great. They're going back and adding a bunch of the old Armored Core games onto PlayStation Plus. So I think that's really cool for, there's so many more From Software fans these days. So for a lot of people to go back and check out some of their original games, I think is pretty cool. Padmon 3 is getting added to the catalog, which is a funny thing to see there. So some upgrades there. Do you think you'd ever go back and check out some of those old Armored Core games? Do you have any interest in checking out From Software's history in that way?
Probably not. But
same for me.
Yeah, we'll see.
Not a huge mech guy, and as I mentioned, I bounced off Demon Souls by Blue Point, so I don't think I'll be jumping back into old Armored Core.
No, absolutely.
All right, we got 2 more games here. First one here is a game called Mind's Eye, which is a very odd-looking game. It's got a little bit of Watch Dogs. I guess that's the closest comparison, but also reminded me a lot of iRobot in terms of the tone. And there is literally a scene where like an iRobot looking robot is like jumping on your character's car and trying to catch you. But yeah, it looks like a weird, cheesy, open worldy, actiony, silly espionage sort of thing. I think the most interesting thing that caught my mind's eye about this was that this is IOI Publishing, so IOI Interactive, the developers of Hitman games, and they're working on 007 right now. I guess they're also getting into publishing, and this is the first game that they are publishing. So there's something about this game that is interesting to IOI, and that makes me more interested than honestly anything I saw in the trailer itself. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm really curious to see, one, what happens with this, and then I guess just the result of it, how successful it is, and then what that kind of leads to with other stuff that IOI publishes, because like they're still doing some Hitman content. They working on 007, and they announced that like fantasy thing, so they're already busy. So I'm kind of surprised that they're doing this publishing thing as well. But it's cool to see because they're just supporting other developers with the they've been fortunate and successful, and they can spread that wealth a little bit. I think that's pretty cool. So we'll see what happens with Mind's Eye.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it reminded me of a couple different games. Definitely Watch Dogs, a little bit of Kane and Lynch for some reason, just based on like some of the over-the-shoulder gameplay there, but not really enough to win me over, unfortunately, by the trailer.
You know what? That is totally fair. And then last up, maybe this wowed you, is a new game called Saros, coming out in 2026. So I think it's like the furthest out announcement we have for PlayStation right now, other than I guess maybe Naughty Dog's new game, the Prophet Conspiracy, whatever the hell that worst title of all time. Saros is a new game from Housemarque, the developers of Returnal, which is a game that I know you are a big fan of. Not much here. This is more of a tone piece, tone setter kind of thing. Definitely hinting at like a looping mechanic in the similar way to what Returnal's going on. And we got Rahul Kohli here from most notably like Midnight Mass, big actor from that. So we kind of got him coming in here to play what seems like the protagonist. This looks a lot like Returnal to me. Obviously the color palette's a little bit different, but just in terms of the energy, the creations, even the way the character looks and the gun he's holding, all looks very Returnal-y, which is, that was a huge successful game for them. So more of the same, I think, is probably a good thing. But yeah, was this one wowing you?
Definitely. Well, I didn't even put the two together that it was the same individual. So that makes total sense there, because just based on the gameplay, the taglines like "come back stronger," down to the font, I'm like, this is Returnal here, and
right.
that's all good things because Returnal was fantastic. So yeah, definitely interested in this one. But out of anything, it just makes me want to jump back into Returnal more so than interested in this game. But yeah,
I still need it's there on PlayStation catalog. I got to give it a download and play some co-op with you or something.
Hell yeah, do some towers.
Do some towers. Did I skip anything that I didn't bring up there that you were interested in?
Not that I'm really gonna seek it out, but the Shinobi Art of Vengeance announcement trailer, I thought just like the art style and everything looked really cool. But once I saw the gameplay, I lost interest pretty quick, unfortunately. But
another thing that we get like a bunch of those every year. It's kind of like I can pick and choose a little bit.
100%. I laughed at good old Taylor Field's pick, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I feel like part of me,
it was fun to see that.
Part of me like just did not think that was a real game, and then to see it here, it's wow. I don't know what I was expecting, but that's it's pretty much on par. So yeah, it was cool to see that one there. And then beyond that, just a little bit more split fiction stuff. I'm getting so excited for that game. March 6th, I think. Early March is when that release was.
Yeah,
so
very soon.
I'm very, very excited for that game. That one's going to be a day one for me for sure.
Yeah, man, we got a really good run here because obviously Civ just came out. Avowed is out. Well, it's 9 p.m. now, so I think tonight, literally, like I could go play it right now. Oh my God, I could be playing Avowed right now. We got to get finished up here so I can edit and then go play some Avowed. Very excited for that. So yeah, we got a really good run of games coming out here. It's going to be a good, fun time at Sidequest. So, hit that subscribe button. Check us out. And thank you everyone for listening. Kirklin was a fun episode here. And next week, I just told you what we're talking about. More Avowed, baby. That's what I'm going to be playing all this week. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.